Something happened in Washington on a Friday afternoon that nobody saw coming, and by the time anyone understood what it meant, it was already too late to stop it. A name appeared on a screen. Just a name, next to another name, inside a bracket that 99% of the world would scroll past without blinking. But for one specific group of people, scattered across an entire country, that single line of text hit like a phone call at 3 in the morning. Something was about to happen. Something big, and nobody, not even the person at the center of it, fully understood yet how big it was actually going to get. This is the story of what happens when a 20-year-old girl from the Philippines walks into an American tennis stadium and accidentally starts a movement. Welcome back to Sherry Diaries, where the moments other people scroll past are exactly the ones we stop for. Stay with me because this one has layers you are not expecting. Let's start with the draw itself, because that is where the tension begins, and it begins quietly. Alex is set to face Zheng Qinwen. If that name means nothing to you yet, let it sink in for a second because it should. Zheng is an Olympic gold medalist. Paris 2024, the biggest stage in the sport, and she stood on top of it. She has been ranked as high as world number 4. She hits the ball with a kind of controlled violence that has ended careers in 3 sets or less. And here is the part that should make your stomach drop a little if you are rooting for the underdog. Zheng is playing this tournament on a wild card, which means she has nothing to protect. No ranking pressure. No fear of falling. Just a former top 4 player with something to prove, walking onto a hard court against a rising star on the very first match of her season. That is not a gentle welcome. That is not a soft landing. That is the tennis equivalent of being thrown into open water and told to swim before you even catch your breath. And for a second, that is the entire story. A brutal draw, a dangerous opponent, a tough first round. That is what this looks like on paper. But paper does not capture what was already happening outside the lines of that bracket, in a city that had no idea what was about to hit it. Because somewhere, in an apartment in California, in a house in New Jersey, in a family group chat that exists in basically every Filipino household across America, phones started buzzing, not with sports alerts, with something closer to a call to arms. Flights were being checked before the ink on the draw was even dry. Flags, the kind that get folded and tucked into suitcases for exactly these occasions, were being pulled out of closets. Watch parties, actual organized gatherings with screens and printed schedules, were being planned in a matter of hours. This is where the story stops being about tennis and starts being about something much bigger. And if you think that is an exaggeration, wait until you hear what a tennis legend had to say about it. Andy Roddick, a former world number 1, someone who has seen every kind of crowd this sport has ever produced, watched what was unfolding in Washington and could not stay quiet about it. He compared it to something almost impossible to picture. A 4th-round Wimbledon match selling out so completely that there was no room left anywhere in the stadium, no matter where you lived or how big your local venue was. He called the whole phenomenon Eala mania, and he said it flat out, he was here for it, because it was good for the sport. Think about what that actually means for a second. This is not a fan giving her a nickname. This is one of the most respected voices in the history of American tennis, publicly naming a phenomenon after a 20-year-old who had not even played her first match of the tournament yet. And here is where the story escalates again, because Washington, D.C. is not Melbourne. It is not Dubai. It is not a region with a naturally massive Filipino population that tournaments have learned to expect and plan around. Melbourne had 60,000 Filipino fans show up in a single stretch of the Australian Open, and that made sense, because Australia has one of the largest Filipino communities outside the Philippines itself. Dubai made sense too, with its enormous population of overseas Filipino workers who treat these tournaments like family reunions. Even Birmingham made a kind of sense, a smaller venue that made a loud crowd feel even louder. But Washington, D.C. is different. Washington, D.C. is 4,000 miles from Manila, sitting in the middle of the east coast of the United States, a city built around policy and government, not exactly known as a hotbed of tennis fandom. And yet the chant started anyway, 2 syllables over and over, echoing off the walls of a venue that has genuinely never heard anything like it before. That is not a regional trend anymore. That is a signal. That is proof that something has crossed oceans, crossed time zones, crossed every boundary that usually keeps these things contained to one part of the world, and it is not slowing down. It is accelerating. So why does one tennis player create this level of devotion from an entire diaspora spread across an entire continent? The answer, when you actually sit with it, is quieter than you would expect, and somehow that makes it hit even harder. Alex has talked about this herself, and what she said was not the kind of polished, forgettable thing athletes say in press conferences to fill airtime. She talked about pride, about where her people come from, about a community that does not just celebrate success, it shares in it, almost like the joy belongs to everyone at once the moment it happens to one person. That is not a soundbite. That is an explanation for why families are rearranging their entire sleep schedules, staying up until absurd hours, just to watch a match on a screen thousands of miles from where they are sitting. Now here is where we need to slow down for a second and actually look at the tennis itself, because this is where the real tension lives. And it is easy to get so caught up in the crowd and the noise that you forget. There is an actual athlete who has to go out there and win points, one at a time, with all of that weight sitting on her shoulders. Alex arrives in Washington ranked number 29 in the world. That is one spot below the highest ranking of her entire career, a peak she reached right after an unforgettable run at Wimbledon. And here is the detail that changes everything about how you should be watching this tournament. She is defending almost nothing. 70 points total from last year's hardcourt season, which means, in the coldest, most mathematical sense, almost everything she earns this week is pure gain. There is very little to lose and everything to win. That should feel like relief. It does not, because standing in her way in the very first match is a player who has already beaten her once before. Their only previous meeting happened back in 2023 at the Asian Games semifinals, and Jung won it in 3 sets. That memory does not disappear just because time has passed. It sits there quietly, an old wound that never fully closed, adding one more layer of motivation underneath everything else Alex is already carrying into this match. And if somehow, against a player with an Olympic gold medal and a point to prove, Alex manages to get through, the reward is not a break. It is Leylah Fernandez, the defending champion of this exact tournament, the player who steamrolled her way through last year's field, including a straight sets win over Anna Kalinskaya in the final, and who will be stepping back onto this court with the kind of quiet confidence that only comes from already knowing you can win here, because you already have. 2 matches. 2 completely different threats. One explosive and relentless, the other composed and battle-tested on this exact surface. That is the gauntlet sitting in front of a 20-year-old who has barely played on hard courts this entire season. And that detail deserves its own moment, because it changes the entire psychological weight of this tournament. The last time Alex competed on a hard court was back in March in Miami, before the clay season completely reshaped her year, before Wimbledon turned her into a household name overseas, before any of what we just spent the last several minutes describing had even happened. Everything about her has changed since March. Her ranking has climbed. Her presence on court carries a different kind of gravity now. Her name alone can shift the energy inside a stadium before a single ball is struck. But here is the sentence that should sit heavy in your chest for a second, because it is the truest thing in this entire story. None of that matters to the court. The court does not know about Eala mania. The court does not care about diaspora pride, about flags in the stands, about a legend calling your rise a phenomenon. The court asks one question, over and over, point after point, and it does not accept excuses as an answer. Can you execute? That is it. That is the whole test. Every rally boils down to that single unforgiving question, especially against someone who hits the ball as heavy and as fearlessly as Jung Chinwen does. And there was one more twist sitting underneath all of this, one that almost nobody was talking about but deserves its own beat in this story, because it says something about how quickly things can shift even when the bigger picture looks perfect from the outside. Alex and Venus Williams were supposed to reunite as a doubles pair in Washington, following a run to the quarterfinals together at Bad Homburg that had captivated fans everywhere. A genuine crossing of tennis generations, a living legend and a rising star sharing the same side of the net. People were excited. It felt like the kind of storyline that writes itself. Felt like the kind of storyline that writes itself. And then it simply did not happen. Venus paired instead with Diana Schneider, and when asked about it, she was gracious but brief, saying only that the earlier partnership had been enjoyable, that this particular reunion did not come together this time, but that she would welcome the chance again in the future. No drama, no conflict. Just one of those quiet redirections that happens constantly in professional sports and rarely gets explained in full. Which means Alex walks into Washington with singles as her only focus. One draw, one bracket, nothing to split her attention. And in a strange way, that simplicity makes the stakes feel even higher because there is nowhere left to hide, no doubles match to fall back on if singles goes wrong, just one long, narrow path with her name on it. So here is where we land, right at the edge of the biggest question this entire tournament is built around. The one nobody, not the fans, not the commentators, not even Alex herself, can answer in advance. Can she do it again? Not on grass, where her flat, aggressive shots create chaos that low bounces only make worse for her opponents. A surface that seems almost designed for exactly the kind of tennis she plays best. This time on hard courts, on blue concrete, baking under a Washington summer, against a player capable of hitting with enough weight to force errors out of anyone who is not completely locked in from the very first point of the match. This is the real test, not whether she can win on a surface built for her strengths, but whether what happened at Wimbledon was the beginning of something permanent, or a perfect storm that only exists on grass. And somewhere inside the William H.G. Fitzgerald Tennis Center, a venue built to hold 7,500 people that is about to feel every bit of that capacity, and then some. Thousands of fans who crossed cities, states, and in some cases an entire ocean just to be present for this exact moment, are about to find out the answer in real time, together, all at once. The chants will start before the first serve. They always do now, but chants do not win points. Crowds do not hit forehands. All of that noise, all of that love, all of that pride traveling across an entire diaspora gets left outside the lines the second the ball is in play, and what happens next belongs entirely to her. This match against Jung Chinwin is not just a first round. It is the opening word of an answer that an entire community has been waiting weeks to hear. And whatever that word turns out to be, everything else that follows in Washington depends on it. If this story pulled you in the way it pulled us in while putting it together, make sure you are subscribed to Sherry Diaries, because this is exactly the kind of moment we live for, the ones that start small and quiet and end up meaning so much more than anyone expected. We will be back with the next chapter of this story very soon, and trust me, you do not want to miss what happens next.